1 week left to go in this 2025 Major League Baseball marathon as the Phillies get ready for the postseason. What kind of questions should we be asking about this team, and what are we looking forward to this last week? From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Phight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, last week of the season, as I just mentioned. And so as this Phillies team is seemingly locked in at the number 2 seed in the playoffs, they're going to be watching very intently on the bottom of the National League playoff picture. We'll talk a little bit about that. The battle for the third wild card, it is totally up in the air with 6 games left to play. And we'll look at what questions we still have left to answer about this team heading into the postseason. That's what's on the agenda for this edition of the Roundtable. We'll also get into a couple of prospect things that came down here on Monday as well. Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher here joining me on the Roundtable as they do every week. Liz Roscher is the editor of SABR's Baseball Research Journal. You can follow her on Blue Sky and X at Liz Roscher. Liz, how are you feeling on a Monday night?
Feeling good. Are the Phillies playing tonight? I should know that.
They are not playing tonight. No,
they are not. So I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling good. Less, I wish they would have won that series in Arizona, but mostly feeling good.
Yeah, I found myself wanting them to win that game on Sunday more than I probably should have at this stage of the season, given how everything's kind of wrapped up. I don't know. I kind of wanted to win a series in Arizona more for like a mental hurdle. And maybe that's just for me and for them, but they have a hard time there. And after winning the first game, I was like, yeah, let's win this series and get a good taste in our mouth from Arizona going into the playoffs, because that is one of the teams this team could play in the NLDS. But we'll jump into all that stuff here in just a second. Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus, and of course he hosts a few other podcasts over at the Hittin Season Patreon, Absolutely Hammered and The Dirty Inning. You can follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh, and soon to be published author as well. Justin, how you feeling, pal?
These last 6 games of the Phillies season, they'll be playing the Marlins and the Minnesota Twins. And I guess in just a nice little bit of contrast, there was a story that got published right before we started recording about the Twins. This will unsurprisingly be a 25-year low for Twins attendance at the close of 2025. And the expectation is that it will be even lower next year. And we all know why. We all know, this team completely pulled the plug on itself, traded 10 players at the trade deadline. Phillies were huge beneficiaries of that, sell-off. So it's just nice to be able to sit here and from this position, just kind of watch a team like that at this time of year and be like, wow, that is, those people are in for it. You don't miss seeing headlines like that about your team. And knowing what grim future awaits you, even as the season ends and the next one begins, it's not going to get better around there very quickly. So, brutal times this time of year. A lot of teams playing for nothing, and I'm just happy to not be one of those teams.
We really, and I know other people have done it, but we really should hold a moment of silence when this season is all over for the fan bases of dead franchises, right? I mean, like you've got Minnesota, you've got Pittsburgh. I mean, there are some teams, they go into it every year knowing they have no shot. And that was our reality as Phillies fans for decades and decades during the 20th century, and even at various 10-year stretches here in the 21st century as well. It's for a team like the Twins, they're going to be coming into Philadelphia to finish up the string on the final weekend of the season, man. I've never watched a Phillies team do a complete sell-off the way the Twins have done. I've seen them just not compete, right? I've seen them claim that they're poor and just never spend in the first place. But I've never seen a Phillies team take an existing team and just tear it down to the studs and say, couple years, good luck. I mean, even in the rebuild of 2015, it wasn't like that.
No. That was very gradual. In fact, they were criticized for hanging on to them for too long. They were criticized for that. So, yeah, not even then. You're right. We haven't really gotten to experience that. And by gotten to, I mean successfully avoided experiencing that, which is really something, given that we've watched this team. But you're right. The Phillies are way more characterized by just kind of gentle malaise rather than aggressive ripping and tearing.
Yeah.
A gentle descent to sucking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the only
like
other
a feather landing in a toxic puddle.
Exactly.
I think the only thing I can think of, and I amazingly was not around for this, but those Philadelphia A's teams that were so great in the 1920s and 30s, they that's what they did. They sold all the pieces, stripped it all down, and then the A's were a disaster for decades after that. But I think in Philadelphia baseball history, that's really the only time that I can think of that happening. So.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to read a little bit more about how Phillies teams would sell off their prized players for decades and decades in that part of history.
Where would they read that? What kind of literature could they read that in?
A material known as Summer of the Cheap Wieners, out early next year in 2026, about the 1941 Phillies and what they were doing during Joe DiMaggio's historic hit streak.
That might come up again on future podcasts, so just so everyone's aware. But it's a great thing. Should be a really good book, really good read for everybody who hasn't read it, which is everyone because it's not published yet. All right, let's jump into things here. Final week. I know I'm moving. I'm getting through it. We're gonna be fine. Final week of the Phillies season here. I mean, when we started way back in late March, looking ahead at a 6-month, 162 game season, we wondered, could this team get back? I mean, we knew they were running it back again for the most part. They didn't do much in the offseason to really help themselves. And we were concerned that in 2024 they ran it back. Well, they ran it back even more in 2025. And it was rocky at times, but really not terribly rocky. Like we've talked about on this podcast, during the course of the season, they had one 5-game losing streak. I think they had one 4-game losing streak, but never really anything more than that. They just kept winning series most of the time, and it wasn't pretty how they did it, but they were way better than the Braves. Obviously, the Braves cratered this year. The Mets look like they are about to finish an epic choke job here at the end of the season, and the Phillies are going to be the National League East team standing, certainly at the top of the standings, and that was far from a certainty when the regular season got started, and certainly around the trade deadline. And I think we can all look to the trade deadline as the turning point of the season. That's really when this team hit their stride and started playing really great baseball. But so we're here now, 1 week left in the season, 6 games on the schedule, and they're all at home. So the Phillies get to finish up their final 6 games at Citizens Bank Park. And I guess let me ask you guys, as far as like what you want, I know we're going to have some questions. There's some questions we need to have answered by this team during the course of this last week as they get ready for the playoffs. But Justin, what do you want to see from the Phillies here over the last week of the season? It can be a certain player. It can be some nebulous thing that you think is important, or just something that you want to be entertained by. What do you want to see over the last week?
Well, for anybody who feels like this team was peaking too early with its September success, this would be the worst time for them to stop playing like how they've been playing. And yeah, they lost a series in Arizona. So, maybe, who knows? Maybe that's about to start happening. But I think for the most part, what I want to see is this team just kind of hang on to the output they've been able to achieve this month. I mean, this has been some really comforting baseball for people who have a deep emotional investment in the success of this team. Watching them play as successfully as they have this month, even when things haven't gone wrong, being able to like overcome and keep at it and like be a little more relentless at the plate and just generally successful up and down the lineup. Just this kind of comprehensive lightness that they have, that like this weight has been lifted off their shoulders offensively. I think you got to avoid the whole we need this momentum, we need we need to be the hottest team going into the postseason. You just need to maintain this approach, and I've been saying this month, is that it hasn't really been about the Phillies getting really hot. It's about their just perfecting their approach and using it effectively. And if that's what you're doing, then you don't have to worry as much about like, are we all like have the hair on the back of our neck standing up and like we're all like really juiced up and ready to go to play these teams in the playoffs. Like you don't have to worry about like that switch getting flipped. It should be flipped, but you don't have to worry about that as much when your approach is just generally productive and you're able to find success the way they have this past month. I mean, obviously the priority is clinching the bye. You need 2 Phillies wins or Dodgers losses, some combination of those two to get that. So that's priority number 1. They feel the same way. It's going to happen. It's got to happen. That's 1A. But I would also like to see a couple of milestones get hit. I'd love to see Trea Turner finish with the batting title.
Yeah.
Kyle Schwarber make it to 55 homers. He's not hitting 60, but like let's get to 55. He just needs 2 more. I'd like to see Harper finish with 30 home runs. That'd be cool. Have another 30 home run season. And I just want to see a loose, comfortable team winning with the confidence that last year's team didn't have. I think that's just going to do a lot for people before they go away for an entire round of the playoffs and then come back. Put aside all that stuff about like, oh, hangovers and losing your momentum. No, that's not a concern of yours if you're just a team that can play well and execute. And right now, the Phillies, that's what they're doing.
And they've got a golden opportunity to just go out and play their game this week with 6 games at home against 2 bad teams in the Marlins and Twins. It's a nice soft landing for them after they really have been working so hard against really good teams here in the month of September.
I haven't said it in a little while, but this is another 6-game stretch where the Phillies have no reason not to win all 6 of these games, really. I mean, unless, you clinch the bye and you decide to start resting starters and everything. But like other than that, these are right. 6 games the Phillies could easily win.
Yeah, and so clinching the bye is certainly their top priority. Getting the first seed in the National League playoffs is likely out of reach. The Brewers have a magic number of 3 coming into the game here on Monday. The Brewers are playing here on Monday. Game hasn't gotten started as we're talking, but I think the Phillies, they would, sure, if they could get the number 1 seed, they would love it. But they still have to clinch this number 2 seed. The magic number for that is 2. Any combination of Phillies wins and or Dodgers losses will clinch them the number 2 seed in the National League, and they get that wild card bye. And the Phillies, Liz, they were talking about this today. They really want that bye. They want to skip that wild card round. It didn't work for them great last year, but they don't think, and I don't think we have ever thought that skipping the wild card round had anything to do with their collapse against the Mets in the National League Division Series. It was a team that was leaking oil down the stretch. You could see it. You could feel it. The players talked about it after the season. Like, we just thought we could flip a switch and we would be back. And that's what makes the last 2 months of the season here so great, is they went 18-11 in August, Liz, and 13-6 here so far in the month of September. I mean, this is what you want to see from this team over the last week of the season.
Yeah, like, this team is not last year's team. This team, we talk about momentum, and it's not like they haven't had any, but it hasn't been an issue. They haven't needed like momentum in that way to get done what needs to get done. Like, the Mets need momentum. For them to keep the last, to move back into the wild card spot, they need positive momentum to do that. The Phillies don't need it. They don't rely on vibes or momentum anymore. There's no switch to flip because they've been in the on position since the season started. And, if not then absolutely since the trade deadline. As for what I'd like to see this week, I'd like to see Aaron Nola have a good start. I'd like to see a half decent. Shut up, Justin. I see you smiling.
It's not going to happen, but yeah, I would like to see that too. It's not going to happen.
I like to see him have a decent start because there will be so much riding on him in the future, and his ability to maybe not pitch well, but get out of danger that he causes himself. Let's say that. Yeah, I'd like to see, and exactly what Justin said, I'd love to see Kyle Schwarber hit 55. I'd love to see Bryce Harper hit 30. I'd like to see this week Johan Duran have a great, a really awesome, close out a game at home and sort of give everybody one last taste of the regular season Johan Duran until it becomes really super intense and like the entrance and the spiders are now very meaningful every single time.
I'm sorry, and we're going to talk about it later, but the Nola thing is objectively hilarious. It's a very funny baseball situation.
Oh, yeah.
In that this guy who is like, still cast, I feel like in people's heads, still like, oh yeah, no, he could be like a 3, or maybe like a 2 if he like really figures his stuff out again. And they locked him up through 2030, and this is like his worst year in maybe his entire career.
Yeah,
but he's got this like huge important role to play in the days ahead when this team will be playing its like most important and intense baseball of the season. And also he missed like a month and a half there in the middle of the season too, so like you don't even like see too much of him this year. I know, we're going to get into it later. It's just hilarious that he is now in this position where it's just like, yeah, I mean, we got to break up the lefties, or if you get to the NLCS, you need a 4th starter, and it's going to be him. I mean, it is just it's hilarious because you got to keep saying like, yeah, he's just got to be able to do what we know he's able to do, and I don't.
Well, he has not been able to do that. That's not what he's able to do anymore.
Well, I mean, I think this is a good time to kind of jump in on one of the things we are looking to see this week. And it really is what the roles are going to be for Aaron Nola and Walker Buehler in the playoffs. I'm not including Taijuan Walker. I don't think they're going to use Taijuan Walker as a starter, but I do think Walker will be in the bullpen. He's been in the bullpen at different times this year and pitched pretty well out of the bullpen. So I think you've got another right-handed arm out there for the middle innings, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of situations they would bring him in a playoff game in the middle innings, but certainly it wouldn't be anything high leverage. Walker Buehler has looked okay in his two starts, or the two appearances he's made with the Phillies so far. He's going to get a start this week as well. I don't think it's as simple as whoever pitches better would get a Game 4 start in an NLCS or the World Series at this point, but it could be because you're working. I mean, the whole reason you got Walker Buehler was for him to contribute in the playoffs in some way. Now, the idea is that he would contribute as a middle reliever or some kind of relief pitcher like he did for the Dodgers a year ago. I don't, at the end of the day, this feels like one of those like spring training type things where we're talking about all these guys who are like the last guys to make the team and they're having all these great seasons. And at the end of the day, they don't actually make much of an impact on the whole, on the 2025 Phillies. But Aaron Nola will only be asked to pitch twice in these playoffs. Game 4 of the NLCS and Game 4 of the World Series. And if he gets in any other time, say in the division series, it's because either something's gone wrong or somebody's gotten injured or something. So I agree. I'm very much looking to see what Aaron Nola does here this week. I don't think he pitched terribly in in Arizona over the weekend. He went 5 1/3. He should have never come out for the 6th inning. Rob Thompson is continuing to push him and see what he can get out of him. And I think the confirmation is here now, Rob. He's a 5-inning or less guy. That's what he is. He would have only given up 1 run in those 5 innings under normal circumstances. The defense behind him blew a play in the 1st inning that led to a run. And then he gave up 2 runs in that 6th inning, which he never should have come out for. If you can get 1 or 2 run outing out of 5 innings from Aaron Nola in a World Series start or an NLCS start, I'll take it. At this point, I'll take it. And then I don't know what he is for 2026 and beyond, but I think that's what you're looking for from Aaron Nola. There's just no way. First time through the order, opponents are hitting 269 with a 331 on base and a 408 slugging. That's not great, but it's certainly passable, I guess, for a Game 4 starter. Second time through the lineup, 266, 329, 484. So similar numbers for batting average and on base. The slugging percentage goes up second time through the order. Third time through, 333 average allowed, 385 on base, 667 slugging percentage. So he just cannot be allowed to face a hitter for a third time in a game. Like it's really that simple. And that's what it comes down to. So I mean, I don't know. What was that, Liz?
I said those are. I didn't know the numbers were that bad. Those are very bad numbers.
Oh, you should take a look at Taijuan Walker's. They're even funnier because you think he's going to be the opposite because the first time through the order, they're hitting 355 against him.
He gets up a lot of runs.
Second time down to 227. Then third time 257. So you're kind of like, oh yeah, a Taijuan Walker start. He gives up like 3 home runs in the 1st inning. Then he settles down for a couple of innings. And then there's like some more runs that just kind of get scrapped as he's going along the way. He's walking guys. He's allowing some hits and then a home run. And then, it's like 5 or 6-0, or maybe the Phillies are scoring. But like that's generally the Taijuan Walker experience. But Nola's numbers do the same thing. They tell you exactly what you're going to expect here. Like, guess what? He's kind of easy to hit, and then as they keep looking at him, he gets even easier to hit. Now, what the Phillies said in regards to like carrying him and Buehler and Walker would be that what if it comes down to this like extra inning shootout,
right,
and we need pitchers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but none of the, and this doesn't dictate anything in the future. It's just something that made me think about this. Have the Phillies played extra innings in any of the postseason games since 2022?
Has who played?
The Phillies. Any other postseason games?
Oh, have
since
they played
2022?
any extra inning games? They played Game 1 of the World Series was an extra innings, and that only went 10.
Oh, that's right.
Since then, no, I don't think there have been any extra inning games for the Phillies in the playoffs. So no.
It's just an interesting place to start stressing. I mean, again, it's a choice. It's a choice they're making. It's like, all right, well, we'll keep guys like Nola around because what if there's a situation where, like you said, somebody's hurt or there's a crazy extra inning situation. This year, the Phillies pitchers have pitched 15 2/3 extra innings, which is right in the middle of the pack. It's not really significant in any way. They have a 4.02 ERA. That is the fourth highest extra innings ERA in the National League. And they have the fourth lowest walk rate in extra innings at 11.3%. So they're not walking guys, they're giving up hits, which we can see in numbers like how they've given up the second most doubles in extra innings this year. It's very damaging, considering that the innings are starting with a runner on second base. So, kind of not what you want. What I'm saying is I get the concern for winding up in an extra inning shootout in the playoffs because the Phillies don't have the bullets outside of their most trusted relievers who have probably already been used to get to that point. So their best bet is to have enough pitchers numerically and hope they don't give up the store before they have to face their third batter. Of course, the illogical part of this is that Nola is kind of known for giving up the store. If I had to guess, I'd say a Taijuan Walker relief appearance involves the same home runs surrendered immediately that he always gives up, but unlike in a start, he doesn't have 4 or 5 more innings to get his head on straight. He just kind of like, and then he's got to go. And Buehler, I don't think he doesn't have a significant body of work to translate for an exercise like this. You just need to know that if you trust a veteran, you just need to know if you trust a veteran who got hurt this year, got cut from the team that signed him to be a significant contributor, and is going to bounce back enough to give you clean innings in some form or another. Offensively or pitching-wise, this decision means they could wind up shorthanded and they'd just rather be missing a bat than missing an arm. So it's not crazy. It's just like a preference. But what it comes down to is, would you rather Aaron Nola be pitching in the 12th inning of a playoff game or Edmundo Sosa? I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer that question.
Justin, it seems like you've done a lot of work looking for reasons to not believe in the Phillies right now.
I'm doing a lot of work to understand the decision and looking into, okay, they mentioned extra innings as the reason to have these guys on the roster. I just wanted to see what the context of that was, and the context was kind of not surprising. And I don't know, I worry about Aaron Nola pitching for this team in the playoffs. I never would dream that they would go to the playoffs without him on the roster. That I don't think it would have to be very extreme for that to happen. So I guess I'm just looking to understand and talk myself into this particular area. But no, I'm in no way going out of my way to doubt the Phillies in general. No.
It's an interesting decision. As Matt Gelb reported in The Athletic, they're considering going, like you said, with 12 pitchers and 14 hitters, and that would be, like you said, to guard against a long extra inning game, because for people who aren't aware, the extra inning rules that they play with in the regular season go away in the playoffs. You could get yourself a 16, 17 inning game, but those don't come around very often. And I get, like, if you're just, I think the thing is with in an NLDS that can only go 5 games, and especially this year where you've got a day off between games 1 and 2, and then another day off between games 2 and 3, it'd be very unlikely that your pitching staff is getting taxed in a division series that goes like that. And I would prefer to have the extra bat on the bench, to be honest with you. And look, I mean, maybe what this really does mean is that Rob Thompson's going to be super aggressive with pulling guys in October. I mean, yeah. I think the leash that we have seen him give players here in the regular season is not going to be there in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't think Aaron Nola gets as much rope as he's gotten before. I don't think,
It's very comforting. Because that's A, how you have to play it, and B, like you just said, Thompson leaves him in that game just to see what happens, and what happens. But that's not something that'll happen in the playoffs. And I think even I can get on board with like Aaron Nola pitching 3 and believing Aaron Nola can pitch like 3 clean innings for you if that's the plan.
Yeah,
I can see that happening.
Well, I mean, let's say Luzardo has a start where he just kind of gets a little bit rocked around, and you want to get him out of there before too much damage is done. You can get Buehler ready. You can get Nola ready. I mean, like you just say, like, listen, we can't take a chance on him getting blown up in a second or a third inning or whatever it is. We got to get another guy in there who can give us 3 innings. And maybe that's what I think that's more likely than the extra inning thing with Rob Thompson in terms of the playoff roster. I do want to double back on the playoff roster in just a second because there's some interesting decisions that have to be made with regards to the position players that they would have on the roster. As far as the rest of the week, you mentioned that one of the things we want to watch is see if Trea Turner can win the National League batting title. He leads the National League still with a .305 batting average, and he has enough at-bats to qualify for the batting title, and he would even if he doesn't play again this season. That puts him in position to be the first Phillies player to win a batting title since Richie Ashburn hit .350 in 1958. .305, a little different than .350, but that's the way things are here in modern-day Major League Baseball. Cubs second baseman Nico Hoerner is second in the National League, batting .299. How big a deal would this be? I know, Liz, batting average isn't what it used to be. The batting title used to be, if you won the batting title, you were the best hitter in baseball. And obviously the game has changed. Thoughts about the game have changed. We no longer believe that. But I still think being called the batting champion is cool. And winning a batting title, obviously, is really hard to do in that no Philly has done it in over a half a century.
It would be really cool. Even if other people don't think it is, I think that it's cool that Trea Turner hit, in the season, had a better batting average than anyone else in the National League. That's fun and cool. I mean, why else are we all excited about Kyle Schwarber hitting the most home runs other than it's the most, it's the best. And I think we should celebrate that. It would be fun, especially since it hasn't been done in so long. It's a nice little, it's a nice little feather in his cap.
It's easy to dismiss this stuff because all we want is a World Series trophy. And Turner himself would probably hit you with, this is great, but I won't be satisfied until I win it all with these guys. It's all about the team. But go back to the All-Star game. We heard them talking about Christopher Sanchez getting passed over for the All-Star team. And everybody knows a few days off to spend with your family, that's not that bad either. But the argument was the argument at the time was mostly about the bonus that he wasn't going to get. And then the Phillies gave it to him anyway. But I think it was Schwarber was talking about how, hey, it does mean something to you as a player to just make the All-Star team, even if you've done it before, even, that even if, it doesn't seem like there's a lucrative reason to do it. And some guys maybe want the time off instead, but there is, there's some excitement. There is some, you do want that. Like 2-time All-Star sounds better than 1-time All-Star. It means, yeah. Hey, I wasn't just one of those late career Joey Coras who showed up on the team and, that was a fun little novelty. And then I went away. It was like, no, my greatness had some longevity. So just in general, I think you have a good idea of what accolades like this mean to them, even if they are team players. Like that's something that's going to mean a lot to, especially to Trea Turner, because secondly, winning a title like that locks in this season as a personal success for him. His 2025 season will have shorthand for how good he was. So you don't have to remember any of the numbers or the ups and downs or this specific thing. All you have to say is that was the year he won the batting title. So he had a great year. And there's no first, second half split you got to get into. It's like, no, he had the highest batting average. And for a guy like Turner specifically, who has spent, I'm going to say like half the time in Philadelphia, proving that he's the kind of guy he is in the other half of the time he's been in here in Philadelphia. I think that kind of award's gonna mean a lot because there's to a certain extent for a while he spent a lot of time trying to prove himself, and everything from the standing ovation onward, that clearly had an impact on him too. I think his time here has been something of a gauntlet at times, but this year he has been absolutely steadfast in his ability to produce the way the Phillies have needed him to produce, and to be able to just put a pin in that and say and then he won a batting title for his efforts. That means way more than nothing.
One of the other things we're going to be watching for this week is how the batting order will be. The lineup is going to look during the course of this last week, as I think we're going to be seeing a preview of what the lineups will look like in the postseason. Trea Turner is expected to come back at some point this week and maybe play a couple of games as just a tune-up to get ready for the playoffs. Now, there's some danger there, of course, if he was like 0 for 16 or whatever in 4 games, might lose the batting title. But I think the most important thing is he wants to get some at bats, get him back in there, and they have ways of getting guys ready to play even if he can't get any at bats. That's not the end of the world. But it sure sounds like he's going to be reinstated to the big league roster with some regular season still left to go. One guy who did come back off the injured list, and it sounds as though he's going to be moving back up in the batting order, is Alec Bohm, who apparently now with his shoulder feeling really good, was an absolute monster this weekend in Arizona. Really the only Phillies hitter to consistently swing the bat well against the Diamondbacks. He went 8 for 13 with 2 doubles, a homer, 1 walk, and 4 RBIs in that 3-game series against Arizona. On Sunday, he was on base 5 times with a double, 3 singles, and a walk. And so, Justin, with JT Realmuto slumping now again, he'd been hitting cleanup all this time. It sounds like Alec Bohm's going to get moved up a little bit. You're going to drop JT down. I'm curious what the lineup looks like for you in terms of Bohm, in terms of Harrison Bader, in terms of Realmuto. I think these guys the roles are starting to settle out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies haven't had like a full-on cleanup hitter kind of all season long. And they've been getting their lowest offensive numbers from that spot in the batting order. Been hitting 238 out of the 4th spot with a 718 OPS. Their leadoff spot has knocked in more runs than their cleanup spot, which is kind of interesting. Weird. Yeah. So if a guy, I think the approach here is exactly what Thompson is doing and not exactly what he has always done, which is reacting to the short-term reality with your eyeballs, seeing like, oh, you know what, this guy seems to be playing really well. Let's move him in there. There's no like, well, this is about this guy deserving this spot and seniority and like players manager and all that. No, we're looking at a guy. He was commenting on Alec Bohm's success since coming off the injured list and saying like, yeah, I mean, look at this guy. He can't be hitting low in the lineup. You know, if somebody's mashing as much as he is, put him right at the middle of the action. Yeah. And start driving some of these runs in. I mean, Alec Bohm's been this team's RBI leader a couple of times the last couple of years. There's no reason not to do that. And like Harrison Bader, like as far as hitting ahead of Realmuto, I mean, I don't mind that either. With as much as Realmuto, Realmuto's been slumping. I mean, good Lord, yeah. Why not put Bader in there? He's just like a Sonic the Hedgehog of offense for this team. And anywhere you put him in the lineup, if guys are on base ahead of him, then he's probably going to cause some trouble and get him in. If he's leading off, he's probably going to get on base. That's just the way he's been playing lately. So yeah, I don't have an issue with him at all. He leads the team in doubles this month. He's hitting like 363. I mean, this is absurd. Like, yeah, put Bader in the lineup anywhere you think you need to generate some offense, and he's probably going to do it. I have no issue with moving Realmuto down in the lineup, and I would hope and think that none of these guys at this point care where they're hitting. As long as they're in the lineup and runs are being scored.
Liz, what are your thoughts on the lineup?
I completely agree. My only concern is that if Turner doesn't start off as hot as we hope he will, how long Thompson will wait before he decides to put Harrison Bader back in the top spot. That's the only thing. I don't want him to wait too long because Harrison Bader is hit like dynamite out of leadoff. And I just don't, I feel like Thompson has made so much progress this year to responding to what he's seeing with his eyes instead of doing all the other stuff. He's moved guys up and down and in and out of the lineup. He moved Castellanos to a platoon player, which definitely had to be done. He didn't allow like Christopher Sanchez to pitch to finish a game because they have Johan Duran. It's all good stuff, and I just don't want him to backslide. And so if Turner isn't getting it done in the top spot, it's time to move him somewhere else because they can't wait.
I mean, they only got 6 games left.
Yeah.
He's not going to have that much time anyway to figure things out.
No, he won't. But I'm just talking about during the playoffs. I just want him to be flexible with the lineups he puts out there and, not be like, no, Trea was our leadoff hitter for most of the season when he was healthy, and he's going to be our leadoff hitter again. And I'm like, remember the Castellanos situation. Now you have options. you have another option. His name is Harrison Bader, and he hits very well out of the first position.
Yeah, he had a lot of success hitting out of the leadoff spot. He's cooled off a little bit over the last few games, which was to be expected. I mean, he was absolutely on fire for a little while there. So that's why I think it'll make a lot of sense for Trea Turner to be there. And then Harrison Bader, he's collecting at least 1 or 2 hits a night, though, driving some runs there in the middle of the order. Sometimes that middle of the order really struggles to get those 2-out hits. And Bader has just been consistently putting his bat on the ball and hitting the ball hard someplace. So good thing to see. I would probably, I'd go Turner 1, Schwarber 2, Harper 3, Bohm 4 at this point. And then if you're facing a left-hander, I've probably got Bader at 5, followed by Real Muto at 6, Marsh at 7. You're probably playing Edmundo Sosa. That's a question. Like, Stott has been playing so well, but against a lefty, are you playing Edmundo Sosa in the playoffs? Is he getting a start over Bryson Stott?
Yeah, I mean, again, you got to play, the hot hand, I would say. I don't mind playing the matchups in that scenario. And then you also just have Stott to deploy later in the game as well, playing as well as he's playing. So yeah, I don't see that as like aggressively offensive or illogical.
Liz, what about Marsh against a lefty?
I mean,
don't fall for it. Don't fall for it.
I'm not going to fall for it, though I don't know which side you're telling me not to fall for now. My urge is always to put Marsh in because I love him. But if he's been doing better against whatever it is, one hand versus the other, then there's no reason to change it now. Don't change it now. He's been having a lot of success where Thompson's been putting him when he's decided to play him. So don't change what he's doing. How's that for not falling for it?
Continue with that outfield rotation based on matchups. That's what we're all agreeing on here.
Yep, I'm good with that. I would prefer that. That's the whole point of having this outfield rotation, is that you're playing the matchups, and that's been working for everybody. I don't know if you know this, but Nick Castellanos is hitting 306 in the month of September. Don't tell anybody, but that's the kind of success I'm talking about.
Let's really quickly talk about the postseason roster, because there are going to be a couple of interesting decisions, and there's a name that's popped up here over the last week or so. Ethan Whitty over at the Good Phight is the first person I saw mention his name, and then I saw him mentioned by Matt Gelb as a guy who could be on the postseason roster, and that's Johan Rojas. And on its face, it doesn't make any sense because he hasn't been on the team for most of the season. He's been down in AAA. He's been playing well down in AAA, but we kind of know what Johan Rojas is. I don't think there's a whole lot of tremendous upside. But the argument is, and I want to throw this your way first, Liz, and tell me if you buy this. The argument here is that if you get into a situation in a playoff game where you've got Brandon Marsh starting against a right-handed starter, and then they bring in a lefty to face Brandon Marsh, well, maybe that's an instance where you want to hit Nick Castellanos. But the problem with that is you're taking Brandon Marsh and his glove out of the game late in a game in the playoffs, say in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning or something like that, and you're putting Nick Castellanos in the lineup in his place. Now, it's a favorable hitting matchup. You would assume that he's only doing that if it's a run production scenario, and then you hope Nick Castellanos produces the runs that he's being asked to produce there. But now you've got a problem defensively. You're going to stick Nick Castellanos out there as to play right field for the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings of a close playoff game. That's not what you want to do. So what's your alternative then? Okay, well, if you have Johan Rojas in the lineup, you can have him pinch run for Nick Castellanos at that point. As soon as Castellanos does whatever it is he does, if he walks or if he gets on base with a hit, you can run him with Johan Rojas, and you can put Rojas in the outfield. So it allows you to use Nick Castellanos' bat in a lefty situation late against in a team's bullpen. Whereas if you don't have Johan Rojas, you might be forced to keep Brandon Marsh in against a really tough left-handed reliever in order so that you don't lose his defense in the outfield. I don't know. That's the argument for Johan Rojas. I don't know how I feel about it just yet. I think I kind of lean to him not being on the postseason roster at this moment, but I can make the argument for it.
I don't want to have to make the argument for it. I don't like him on the postseason roster. I mean, I could see that type of situation happening, but it's not like Castellanos is physically unable to play the outfield. He's just not as good as he once was. And I just don't see a situation.
I think you're underselling
if
it. He's atrocious out there, though, Liz. He's the worst defensive outfielder in baseball.
Oh, okay. That much I didn't know. So he is hideous. But if you know who's also hideous at something he should be good at? Johan Rojas. He is not good at hitting. He's not good at hitting major league pitching. And if it's close late and they still haven't scored that run, you know who's going to end up being up instead of Nick Castellanos? Johan Rojas.
And that's a fair point. 100%. I mean, I totally get that, Justin. What do you think?
Well, you got to think of this in the context of the postseason, and like filling this spot on the roster comes down to a couple of things. And one of them is like, all right, of the guys that could fill this spot, do any of them do something at like a really elite level? And the truth is that Rojas is the only one of these guys that does. And even if you're just saying speed, I'm not going to like necessarily rip my hair out thinking about how badly Johan Rojas would be at the plate in the postseason, because Johan Rojas wouldn't be there to be at the plate. Yes, he may wind up there and it would bite you in the butt. But the point is that he's not there to have the bat in his hands with the game on the line. He's there to replace somebody on base and use that elite skill, his speed, to be a huge asset for the Phillies. Now, he also has managed to get on base in the past and be one of these guys that runs into outs. So, you know, that does to a certain extent nullify the elite skill we're talking about. I understand wanting that tool in your toolbox later. If it winds up in these situations where you're like, yeah, you're swapping a guy out for another guy, and then you got to think about pinch running, you got to think about defense. Like he allows you to do, I think, a little more strategically than perhaps the other options available to you. I actually was ready to come here and make an argument for Otto Kemp, because among Phillies batters with at least 80 plate appearances with runners on base, Kemp has the highest line drive percentage on the Phillies. He's got a higher batting average, 282, with men on base than Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Bohm, JT Realmuto, and is for 1/1000ths of a point from having the same OPS in that situation as Trea Turner, who we were just talking about winning the batting title. I think all this feeds into my anecdotal analysis that Kemp is pretty unflappable and not often uncomfortable, and has come through probably a little bit more than the Phillies had even projected him to. And for me in the playoffs, that is a skill that I would love more hitters available to the Phillies to use to have. Guys that don't crumble in that moment and can knock runs in when there's men on base. But then you look at those numbers with men on base and you realize Weston Wilson's exist only in a 49 plate appearance sample size, but his are even better than Otto Kemp's, in that he's got the third highest batting average and OPS with men on base on the Phillies. He has a 933 OPS with men on base. He's behind only Kyle Schwarber in the rate at which he hits the ball hard with men on base, which isn't always good, but he also leads the team in line drive percentage with men on base. So if you're hammering line drives with consistency with men on base, you are going to knock in runs. You know, if not the first time, then maybe the second time. You know, like you're always giving yourself a shot. So I don't know. There's a couple of skill sets here to take advantage of, and I get what Thompson's doing, like what the Phillies are saying, talking about removing Marsh for Castellanos and then replacing Castellanos with Rojas. You're trying to play, 3 moves ahead of the opposition. That doesn't make no sense. I would understand what he was doing there, and you don't have to worry. They're not going to like pinch hit somebody for Rojas thinking like, oh yeah, maybe he'll get a hit here. Nobody's thinking that. They've got to be at the same conclusions we are. But boy, it's tough to ignore those numbers Wilson's been able to put up in clutch situations, because the playoffs are just, couple weeks of clutch situations.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I think I would love Otto Kemp to be on this postseason roster. I just, with Trea back and Alec back and Edmundo Sosa back, and the fact that Otto Kemp doesn't really play the outfield. I mean, Otto
Kemp is a regular season outfield option. He is not a postseason outfield option.
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see stick him in right field or left field that's gonna work out well for you. But at the same time, I kind of want the best hitters on the postseason roster, and maybe he's strictly just a guy off the bench. Maybe he's not a guy who plays who you play in the outfield. in a postseason game. I don't know. You would be limiting yourself as the manager, maybe if you did that. But I think you also give yourself a better chance to score runs, which, as we've seen, has historically been this team's bugaboo when they've gotten knocked out of the playoffs. So I think I lean towards having Weston Wilson and Otto Kemp on the postseason roster and just trying to score runs. We saw the 22 team that went the furthest had one of the worst defensive outfields in baseball, with Kyle Schwarber playing the outfield every day. And they just decided we're going to
making 3 key defensive plays during that postseason, just for the record.
No,
it can happen.
Yeah, it can, and because that's what they decided. We're going to out-hit our defensive shortcomings, and so that could be what they do here. And they do have some good defenders who would be on the roster anyway. Max Kepler can play the outfield, Bader can play the outfield, Marsh can play the outfield. They're already better set up in the outfield defensively than they've ever been with any of these other teams that have gone to the playoffs. So, but a couple interesting decisions to make about the postseason roster. I want to get to the National League wildcard situation in just a second, but I did just want to quickly touch on the Nick Castellanos stuff that went on Friday. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss that. And I'm curious what your guys' situation is on this story. It was Nick Castellanos had a big game on Friday night against the Diamondbacks. He was the reason why they won that game, had a big home run, some big hits late. And obviously he hasn't been playing every day. He's been a spot starter now as he's had a new role thrust upon him. And it's pretty clear that he's not happy about it. We knew he wasn't happy about it. No one would be happy about it after they'd signed a 5-year contract paying him $20 million a year. He's a former All-Star. He's a guy who's used to being celebrated as one of the best players on any team he's played on. And he famously got into it with Rob Thompson earlier in the season when he was removed for a defensive replacement late. Rob Thompson then didn't do that again for multiple months in order to try to appease Nick Castellanos. And now, once they got Harrison Bader, it just became clear it was best for this team for Castellanos to take more of a backseat, a reserve role. And it's worked out beautifully for everyone. So after the game on Friday, reporters first of all, Nick Castellanos does an interview with Scott Fransky and Ruben Amaro on the radio or on the TV, and is surly and short. And I understand Nick Castellanos has this relationship with reporters where he doesn't abide stupid questions and all that kind of stuff. But this is Scott Fransky, this is the Phillies radio play-by-play guy, the TV play-by-play guy. Just answer the questions that Scott Fransky and Ruben Amaro are asking you on the TV side. Like, I can't imagine someone doing that to Harry Kalas back in the day. But then I would say there was a lot of controversy that reporters, and specifically Matt Gelb and Todd Zalecki, were the ones asking the questions about asking Nick after the game about his role. And Nick Castellanos, giving some short answers, clearly annoyed by the line of questioning, but stayed and answered all of the questions, and eventually blurted out that he and Rob Thompson essentially aren't speaking. Rob Thompson doesn't talk to him. He doesn't talk to Rob, all that kind of stuff. So people got up on the reporters. They're not, the reporters are trying to trash Nick Castellanos. What are these stupid questions? He's already answered all these questions. Let's move on. I'm curious what your thoughts were on the Nick Castellanos situation on Friday night. I have very strong feelings about this. I'll hold them in abeyance for the moment. Justin, what did you make of all this on Friday night? And does it matter?
What is with the exposition dump? What like the timing of this? Suddenly, I should. I mean, clearly Castellanos doesn't seem particularly worried about his relationship with Rob Thompson, or he wouldn't try to turn a post-game interview into a therapy session. And he says he's good with the guys in the locker room, and that's great. But I think what this came down to for me was kicking up some dramatics right before the playoffs doesn't seem super team friendly to me. Like, if everything's as cool as he says, then everything's cool. No complaints. Great. Let's just win. Let's just get through this. You're probably getting traded in the offseason anyway. So okay, let's just all survive and get through the World Series. It's a bummer to learn that there's some sort of splintering in the Phillies between him and the manager, especially for a manager that we hear nothing except, he's a player's manager about. I've worked at a lot of places where, and I've liked Castellanos the entire time. Even when he's struggling, I'm still just like, oh yeah, what a wild, interesting guy. And you always think, being the kind of player he is, he can turn it around at any second. So, unfortunately that didn't really happen this year. But there's always a guy, I feel like, in every office who feels like he can he's going to be how he is. He doesn't need to worry about like decorum or just answering Scott Francis. Just answer the question. It's a goofy question. Like, not every interview is deciding like the fate of America or anything. Like, you don't need to take it so that, oh, was that a question? Like, no, man, it wasn't a question. It was a goofy post-game thing, and you can just reply, and then we all move on. Like, we're all watching this because it was a cool win, not because we're expecting you to unearth any deep truths or anything. And like, it feels like he is that guy who just thinks I'm going to be how I am, and everyone else has to react to me. And that might make things harder for other people when I say things like, well, I'm not talking to the manager right now. Like, the communication's been bad. He doesn't talk to me the way my dad used to talk to me. Again, why any of this came up is okay.
So strange.
And, you know, it always creates issues. That person always creates issues when they're like, well, I refuse to adhere to the general level of communication that we all have, and I'm just going to talk the way I want to talk, and I'm going to get upset about the things that I want to get upset about, and that's just how it's going to be. And I'm going to bulldoze through all this other stuff, and that's just how it is. It always creates problems. And I don't know. It mostly for me, this was just a bummer. It was a bummer because, like, this team has been riding vibes so many times, like, especially this time of year for the past couple years. And to hear that this has been going on is, you know, not super surprising, but also a bummer. And also, I really don't like that he's, like, deciding to kick this kind of hornet's nest a little bit right before this team's going into October, a time when they really got to have their heads right. So, I don't know. He says everything's fine with all the players in the locker room, and I guess you got to just believe that. Team keeps winning. Nobody's going to be bothered anyway. But, yeah, it's just why now? Like, why did we have to do this now? It's unfortunate.
Well, and Liz, I think part of the issue is that fans had with it, well, I think mostly took Nick Castellanos' side, is that they felt like it was the reporter's fault that this all got brought up and that it was this issue, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Dumb.
Yeah. I mean, reporters are just doing their jobs.
Right.
They're doing their jobs.
It's a story.
And this was a question. Yeah, it's a question that's relevant to what's been happening. He had a great game, which has not happened in a while. And the reporters wanted to ask him about that and how he felt about his reduced role. And Justin's right. He turned it into an unnecessary therapy session, and he decided to be dramatic about it, which he is every time. Like, every time he gets asked questions by a reporter and he thinks it's dumb, he always does that thing where he's like, well, I'm going to be this, you've already decided to make me the center of attention, so I'm going to not give you what you want and just be this way. I'm going to be
because
this
I'm so much
guy.
Smarter than you is how it comes across.
It's really frustrating to watch an adult man do that. And I don't know if I believe that things are okay in the clubhouse, if only because, let us not forget, the only reason we know about the Bryce Harper Rob Manfred interaction is because Castellanos is the one who spilled it. And he spilled the whole thing, not even just a little bit. He spilled the whole thing. And
that's really true.
Bryce Harper, I think we heard that he wasn't happy about it, but even if we didn't hear that, he wasn't happy about it.
Yeah.
He was absolutely, he was not into it because he doesn't like for people to know that stuff. To him, it's clubhouse business, and that's not fan business. And as great as that story was, I can understand that. You know, he's the guy who speaks out of turn and who's causing problems and who kicks up drama all the time. And I get that fans excuse it because he's a player, and like to some fans, they're being hostile to him. Like, he had a great night. Why are you bringing him down? I'm like, they're not bringing him down. They're talking about things that are actually happening, facts that are in evidence that we see every day. You know, asking him about that stuff is not beyond the pale. It's not inappropriate, and it's not crapping on his great game. If Castellanos doesn't want to answer questions, he could be that way, but I mean, it's not going to make anyone write a nicer story about him. It's not going to win him any fans in the locker room. or I'm sorry, in the clubhouse. It's not gonna ease any wounds. And at this point, maybe he's like, I don't want to. The damage has been done, and I'm ready to be off this team.
Yeah. Well,
but I mean, he's gonna, wherever he goes, he's gonna have a reduced role. That's just the way it is.
Right. And you know, like you said, Castellanos has been doing this for a long time, but this is my issue with the fans getting on the reporters. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't know Todd Zalecki or Matt Gelb. We've interacted, you know, occasionally online, but I'm not here stumping for the Phillies beat reporters.
There are times when the reporters are the offending party, and that goes beyond like the Phillies locker room. That goes in general, like players and reporter interactions. There are plenty of times when the reporters, like, you know, you would not be on the reporter's side, and this time this didn't strike me as that time. He's the one that had the post-game interview with Fransky that kind of kicked this whole sequence of events off. That
bothered me as much more than anything else, because you could tell he just went on there looking to be surly and looking. And anytime you're a reporter, I mean, reporters are there to write stories. They're there to write stories about the game. If you just want to know who scored what run and who got what hit, you can look that up in the box score. You don't actually have to do a story. But reporters are paid to write a story, a narrative about the game that you all just watched. And like it or not, Nick Castellanos, that's a story. The fact that you're not playing very often, and yet you're still performing well. It could have been a good story for you. It could have been a perseverance type story. But I don't understand the fan base getting angry at the reporters for asking questions of a player who's clearly trying to avoid talking about something and just only giving them little bits of cryptic information. And then it goes off. Once he mentions the Rob Thompson thing, they have to follow up with that. They have no choice. They have to follow up on that. So it's just, reporters are not players' friends. And I think that's where with all these different, with reporters doing podcasts now and lots of interviews with players, and, you know, everybody's on social media. So there's social media interactions. There's this blurring of the lines between reporter and player and everything, fan and everything else. They're not there to have Nick Castellanos like them. And I'm sick of the players' family members coming on social media telling people, you know, to knock it off and getting on people's cases. Like, just don't go online for a little while. It totally made a distraction out of what should have been a really fun win on Friday night. So, not great.
Yeah, coming
Turn
off
off
of
your
a
phone,
win,
Jess
too.
Castellanos. Turn off your phone.
That was the confusion. It was like coming off a win, and you're just like, and I would say 9.5 times out of 10 in a player versus reporter interaction, the fans are going to be on the player's side. Like that. Yeah. That's not really. You're not looking at logic or journalistic ethics or anything. It's just, well, we like the player because he did well in that game. Leave him alone. And according to a video from on Pattison, Rob Thompson addressed these comments, and he kind of was like, all right, well, it sounds like I've got to do a better job of being a communicator. It sounds like I've got to do a better job of being accountable. You know, he's like, I'm not a mind reader. I urge players. I want players to come in here and tell me what's on their mind. But yeah, I obviously have to do a better job. So he just kind of swallowed the grenade and was like, yeah, sure, it's my fault. He's right.
High Road Rob. That's the new nickname. High Road Rob. That's what we're going to call him. All right. Real quick to wrap up, the National League wildcard picture is gotten really close, and for the first time since I think mid-April, the Mets are no longer in a postseason position. They do not control their own destiny for the playoffs. The Cincinnati Reds, who have a tiebreaker over the Mets, have the same record, 80-76. They are tied atop for the final wild card spot. But again, the Reds with the tiebreaker. So if the season ended today, it would be Cincinnati against the Dodgers in the National League wildcards, in one of the National League wildcard series, with the Mets on the outside looking in, and Arizona, who the Phillies just played this weekend, just one game back. The Reds have a tiebreaker over Arizona as well, I believe. So the Reds are in the best position, but it's a tight race, you know, just one game separating these three teams. Real quick, who ends up with this third wild card, Liz? What's your prediction?
I'm going to say the Mets. I think they'll find a little bit of something in these last couple of games, but I would be absolutely delighted if they didn't.
Justin.
Diamondbacks offense has come alive this month, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Reds, who've won 5 in a row. I feel like they just got that juice of a team that's like, we did it. we pipsqueaked our way right into the playoffs. And then the looming shadow of the Dodgers is just cast over them.
Yeah.
And their playoff appearance is about just like a gasp in the dark, and then they're gone. Like that just seemed like one of those
Kinda like
situations.
Like the Marlins that one year.
Yeah, against the Phillies in 23. Absolutely, that's good. I think it's gonna be the Diamondbacks. I think they're the hottest. Well, you're right. The Reds have won 5 in a row, but watching them this weekend, that team terrifies me. They still terrify me, and that's a nightmare matchup in the NLDS for the Phillies, if you ask me.
Man, they weren't scary in the NLCS. That was general malpractice committed by the Phillies in that series. I looked at those box scores again. I don't know if I've ever seen a playoff series lost quite like that before, where the other team's just going like, here you go. There, it's that pennant's all yours. Here, we're ironing the pennant, the National League pennant for you. Here you go. And the other team's like, ow, it's too hot. And just like throws it back at them.
I don't want
like,
it.
Yeah, ouch, it hurt. Yeah, just ridiculous. So I'm not scared of the Diamondbacks in that situation. It's just, like, are the Phillies going to be the Phillies? And we've been repeatedly saying yes. So,
Yeah. They're a different team this year. They are. I shouldn't be scared of any of those teams.
Yeah.
But
I'm not worried about any of these teams. Not the ones that eliminated them in the playoffs the last few years. Not the ones that seemed particularly threatening this year. I mean, the Phillies are they're in a great spot.
They are in a great spot. And that's the key takeaway for this last week. The Phillies are in a great spot heading into this last week of the season to get ready for the National League, what we assume will be the National League Division Series coming up first weekend in October. All right, final thoughts. Liz, any final thoughts for tonight?
I don't have any final thoughts other than the Baseball Research Journal will be out, sometime in November, I believe. So look at newsstands, or they won't be on newsstands. I'll tell you where to look when it's finally released.
All right. And Justin, final thoughts from you, bud?
I haven't posted it on social media, which I should do to get more people to be aware of it. But the newest Dirty Inning came out. This season has had a fountain of statistics to use as a jumping off point for podcasts that focus on the dumbest, funniest, and most obscure innings in Phillies history. And this one used a particular note from, I believe it was a Matt Gelb note from months ago now. But back when Jordan Romano was still in the Phillies, I think the last appearance he had, it was noted that no one had pitched more for the Phillies with a higher ERA than Jordan Romano since a man named Reggie Grabowski in 1934. So we did an episode on Reggie Grabowski's worst game from 1934. And honestly, it's probably worse than anything we've seen Jordan Romano do.
Wow. So. All right. That's a must listen. Head on over to the Hittin Season Patreon, patreon.com/Hittin Season to check out that podcast. And I'll just mention real quickly, congratulations to Otto Kemp and Griff McGarry, the 2025 Paul Owens Award winners. McGarry over Andrew Painter. Who'd have thought that at the beginning of the year? Justin Crawford named Phillies Minor League Player of the Year by Baseball America. So just some accolades there for some Phillies prospects to finish up the podcast. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin Season. I want to remind you, if you want to watch this podcast, you can check out the WHYY YouTube channel. Subscribe to the WHYY YouTube channel. And every time we got a new podcast, an edition of the Roundtable, that podcast will be up on the WHYY YouTube page. Of course, we can always be found in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever it is you get your podcasts, we are there as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin Season.